Greetings from Envika. Thanks for joining today's wildlife webinar session. The webinar is moderated by Kiran Bagade and myself.
It's always pleasurable to drive through this forest, and we always say, "Wow, what a drive to go through these green jungles, see some birds, hear some animals, and certain things." But however, if we are careful enough and a bit observant, somewhere down the lane as we drive, we tend to come to a screeching halt, and that halt is because we see a meat ball. And if we observe closely, we realize it's a dead wildlife. So this is a roadkill, basically. So roads are one of the major linear intrusions we have around the globe. And as I said, since they are the central features of human development, they tend to reach every nook and corner of our globe. And it's the same with our country. Apart from roads, the other linear intrusions include huge pipelines, power transmission lines, man-made canals and lift irrigations which go through the forest, railway lines, and many barricades, which we can see on this picture. The left side is a power transmission line which is going through the Bandipur National Park, and the right side is the barricades which is built to avoid animal entering into human sectors. So these are all act as linear intrusions. So basically, the idea is anything which runs into kilometers, which obstruct the movement of the wildlife in its habitat, we call them as linear intrusions. So we are all are aware, most of us, about the various pressures the forest has and our wildlife. So one of the commonest thing is encroachment of forest lands to develop the agricultural fields. Next is hunting and poaching. Then we have snares and jaw traps which are placed all around, either to consume for meat, bush meat, or to collect skin and sell it at the market for a high price and legal living. So the other kind of pressure which forests have is the exploitation in the name of medicinal plants and other things. Like for instance, this canarium tree is used to get dupa. Dupa is an instant candle kind of thing which is used by a religious for a religious purpose. And just to extract the dupa from this huge tree, we hardly get around half a kg of that. But in the process, we forget and be the reason to kill this tree, which would be more than 100 years old. So all these pressures and the ever increasing human population and ever developing areas around the forest have led to the frequent issues which we see these days, that is the man-animal conflict. When we realize all these issues, there is one more issue which is behind us, which also plays a major role, and it's becoming a major threat to the wildlife of our country as well as at the global level. That is roads. Roads bisect all the national parks. As per one assessment, 70% of all the PAs have linear intrusions in one way or the other. Today, I'll be talking about road ecology. And my major concern would be about, or my major scope of this talk would be about the roadkills. So before going into the details of what is roadkills and what are the effects of roadkills on our wildlife, let's just go through few slides to understand the basics of these things. So to start up with, let's brush up our senses about ecology. So getting into the basics of ecology. So what is ecology? As we all know, most of us know what is ecology. It is the interaction between the biotic and abiotic components and their interaction within a given environment. The term ecology is derived from the Greek word okiology, meaning household knowledge, and was termed by Ernest Haeckel, a German biologist. So, in that sense, what is road ecology means to us then? So, road ecology is the study and interaction of roads on the biotic and abiotic components of a given area and their effects on changing the natural environment has given rise to the new science called the road ecology. So, road ecology is one of the subjects which is least understood, probably because it is not in the forefront in our country. However, there are a lot of studies, opportunistic studies, which have been conducted by various researchers and scientists, and some of them have seriously taken up this subject to take it up to the next level. So, the basics, evolution of roads. Roads began as long as Stone Age when tracks were made by primitive men. However, it was the Romans who first built roads as we know them today in the year 2012 BC, during the period 2312 BC. So coming to the roads in India, it was during the regime of Harappa and Mohenjo-daro, as early as 5000 BC, roads started to evolve in our country. And however, it was in the 21st century that roads started to reach every nook and corner of the country in the name of development and to reach people. Today, India's road network stands to say around 3.01 million kilometers, of which 1.15 lakh kilometers of national highways. Then we have around 1.76 lakh kilometers of state highways and an informal network of 27.37 lakh kilometers of road networks. So effects of roads on wildlife. What would be the effect of roads on wildlife? How is it going to affect wildlife? The roads are just passing through the forest, and there shouldn't be any problem as we move in the vehicle and the animals are free to roam around. We are just taking a small chunk of the forest to construct roads. But as we go into deeper, there are a lot of catastrophic things which bring in by the roads and the linear intrusions. So first thing is the fragmentation of forests. So road needs a large chunk of forest patch. So in India, we are not sure of what is the extent of roads which goes to the forest exactly. So there is as per one of the research by Rajat et al., which says they worked on the fragmentation of forests, and it's named as bits and pieces forest fragmentation by linear intrusions in India. They say there is a 6% increase in number of patches due to linear infrastructure. Patches in the sense fragmentations. So that is the situation today. And Gubbi, Sanjay Gubbi sir had done one of his work in Bandipur forest, and Bandipur has a 800 square kilometer of forest. And if we take up the roads there and see the direct impact of roads on wildlife, we directly lose around 800 hectares, that is 8 square kilometers of direct forest for the roads. So what does fragmentation of forest does? We all know. Let's not go into the detail of that in this topic. So edge effect. The roads, when they are formed, it's not only the roads, then we need to have the view lines. So the view lines play a major role because we need to give space for the drivers and the animals to see whether there is a vehicle coming or an animal moving. So the density, the area which has been cleared to have a view line is much more catastrophic than the road itself. As per one of the researchers, the clearance of view lines is more catastrophic up to 200% than the road itself. This actually gives scope to have an edge effect. So what is an edge effect? Edge effect refers to the change in population or community structures in a given area when a new species or a new alien species takes over the open spaces created by man. So road, when there is a continuous canopy and roads is constructed, a canopy opens up, and there is a fight for the local species by which are challenged by the new species which come into the open areas. So that causes an edge effect, and this could be detrimental to the local species to some extent. Then species isolation. So how is species isolation happening? So there are a lot of species which are very poor dispersal. Example, if we take the anurans, they are anurans meaning frogs and caecilians. So anurans, basically all the amphibians are poor dispersers. So roads can act as a major barrier for them, and they won't be able to move or cross the roads to the extent they want to. And to certain extent, they get isolated in small pockets. This again is a threat to the particular species. And over a period of time, if they cannot really move from one area to another, they get isolated in that pocket and they become isolated there. Hunting and poaching. Hunting and poaching is common everywhere. It's a global issue. But how does roads help? Roads actually will be the way to poaching and hunting. It makes things easier for the poachers and hunters to transport these things. Next is the roadkills, which we will deal in detail in the next session, I mean, in the coming 30 or 40 minutes. So the last one is the local extinction. So there are a few studies which say, especially with the frogs, that because of these linear intrusions, whether it's the roads or the pipelines or the power lines or whatever, the frogs, the density of frogs has been going down. And in a given area, if the density or the population of frogs, roadkills, exceeds 10%, probably that species would be going down. Their numbers would be going down. And probably over a period of time, they might go and become local extinct in that area. So these are the major effects of roads on our wildlife. So today we'll be discussing more about the roadkills, forgetting about all the other effects which the roads have on wildlife. So my interest of topic is roadkill. And so what is a roadkill? So as we saw in the first picture itself, a roadkill is an incident which happens when an animal is killed by a speeding vehicle in their natural habitat, and that is referred to as roadkills in scientific terms. And now, as we have observed, roadkills can be of two types. One is the impact roadkill. The other one is the runover roadkill or the crushed roadkill. So let's see what is the impact roadkill. So impact roadkill is one which happens when a speeding vehicle hits a wild animal and there is no external injury seen. However, the animal would have suffered internal injuries and may not die instantaneously. And in some cases, they might die instantaneously also. However, they go through an intense trauma. The second one is the runover or crushed roadkills. In this case, it's very evident that the animal is run over and the death is instantaneous. So, what are the direct effects of roadkills on our wildlife? As we have discussed earlier, local species extinction could be one of the major things which happens because of roadkills if properly not mitigated over a period of time. Then food chain leading to more roadkills that we'll be discussing in the later slides. And it's also observed there would be behavioral alterations in the wild animals, wherein they start avoiding the roadkills and the amount of energy they are going to spend on reaching a destination would be much higher. So going through some of the slides, let's go through some of the slides wherein we see the roadkills. As this one is the spectacled cobra, then we have a banded kukri, a green wine snake, a Russell's viper, a python. Why so many roadkills of snakes? And especially during the monsoons, we have observed the number of roadkills increases, especially the reptiles. And why only the reptiles rather than the mammals or other species? So roads are the thermal areas for these reptiles. As we all know, reptiles are cold-blooded and they depend on their environment to get their body temperatures or to maintain their body temperatures. So generally during the monsoons or the rainy seasons, the snakes and the reptiles tend to move towards the available road, which is much warmer compared to the other surroundings and end up as roadkills. So then we have certain mammals which are seen as roadkills, commonly the jungle cat, the common mongoose, the small Indian civets, then we have the common palm civet, the porcupines. Well, these are all nocturnal species, and many a times they are killed by the vehicles moving at high speed during the nights. They are one of the animals which are nocturnal, as we all know, tend to move in the dusk and early morning time, and the vehicles are moving very fast. And in the process of reaching from one area to the other, these animals come to the road and get run over by the speeding vehicles. Then let's come on to the primates. When we come to primates, we see some of the primates which are being killed on the roads, especially the Hanuman langur. We have seen bonnets also. This is LTM, the lion-tailed macaque. So it's unfortunate to see a lion-tailed macaque on the road. Probably 30 years back, uh, the lion-tailed macaques never used to come down its canopy. Unfortunately, because of the canopy breaks which we see today, because of huge tea estates probably, and then we have the roads which bisects their habitat. These animals are literally seen on floors in some of the areas like Pudutotam and in Kudremukh region also. So, and ultimately, while crossing the roads, they get killed on the roads itself. So it's very unfortunate that these animals, which never tend to come to the forest floor unless it's really required, they used to spend most of their time on the tree canopies. Because of the breakage in the canopies, they have to get down from the trees, cross the roads, and start up with their canopy to feed. So this is one of the pictures which shows the breakup of canopies, and when there is a break in canopy, the animal tends to put in more effort to reach the other side of the tree, and many a times it might miss out the distance and gauge the distance and come on, fall on the road and probably run over by vehicles. Then coming to the avian species, the white-breasted water hen. Then we have the crow pheasant, the common mynas, jungle babbler. So how do birds get onto the road? Roads are also one of the sources of food for many species of birds, because as the vehicles move on the road, which carries a lot of grains and other stuff which are spilled over, these animals comes to feed on that, and they congregate or move around the edges of the roads, and they come in contact with the vehicles and are run over. So all these species which are very much visible to our eyes, how about the other species, and especially the insects? Insects play a very major role in our lives. If we understand them, they are one of the major pollinators, especially the beetles, bees, and we have the butterflies. They play a major role in pollination. However, with the roads and the vehicles speeding, a lot of butterflies and insects are run over. Especially during the migration period of butterflies, we have seen hundreds of butterflies getting stuck into the radiator chamber of the vehicles. So, especially during the migration period, the migrations they migrate in thousands and thousands. The windshields itself acts as a barrier for these butterflies, and the speeding vehicles hit when they are hit on the windshield of the vehicles, they instantaneously die. So nobody has actually assessed the quantity of the butterflies killed by the road kills in the process of road kills, and how it is having a direct effect on the uh, balance of this whole cycle, which needs further investigation. Like I was talking about the food chain on roads. So when we see a roadkill, generally we also see some of the other small insects which try to feed on the dead ones and ultimately get run over by the vehicles too. And this forms a food chain. And in this case, we see a hump-nosed pit viper which has been run over, and the ants which try to feed on it also been run over. Similarly, the lizards which come to feed on butterflies or small insects which are hit by vehicles and struggling to get back to their flight are also run over many a times. Similarly, then we see Brahmini kite. What is a Brahmini kite doing on the road? So it basically comes down to pick up a dead animal or a dead bird or an insect. In the process, this also gets run over by vehicles and get killed. So these things not only happens in wild or natural areas, but also we can see them in our urban setup. These two jackals were run over by vehicles in Mysore. Kukralikere is one of the areas which had few jackals, and unfortunately we lost two or three jackals for road kills while crossing the road. So we could see a lot of these small squirrels and birds. And we've also recorded common palm civets being killed on road in the city areas, urban areas also. So roads not only just kill a single animal or a single bird, but if we carefully observe, there is a lot of link to one animal to the other. If you look at this picture, this is the roadkill of a common palm civet. And this we were going to one of the forests early morning, say around 4:30, 5 o'clock, and we saw this thing on the road between the Bandipur, I mean between Gulupet and Bandipur, and we stopped to take a few pictures. And some of the villagers came and asked us, "What were you doing?" So we said we just wanted to take a picture of this roadkill, and it was run over by vehicles, trying to explain it to them what was the situation. So then that fellow said, okay, this is the smaller one, the young one. However, you have another, we have pulled up another one which is on the roadside. So here is the other one, which is the mother of that young one. So this is how the roadkills are interlinked. This mother was killed 2 days before, and the young one somehow survived for a day or two. But eventually, in search of its mother, it was also road killed. So there is a lot of things which we won't see many a times unless the villagers told us. We couldn't have sought seen the chain of roadkills which happens. So similarly, there is another situation. We were talking about the impact roadkill. So this was in Chamundi Hill, Mysore. Uh, we have some leopards which move in and out of Chamundi Hill quite frequently. And this leopard was hit by a speeding vehicle, and since it couldn't move around, it was laying in the middle of the road, and somebody saw it, and some of my friends were informed who were into wildlife and conservation things, and even the forest department were also told. So the situation was such that the animal is hit by a speeding vehicle, and it is not in the process, I mean, it's not in the position to move itself to safety. The animal is already traumatized. So, what are the actions we need to take to reduce the trauma? But unfortunately, in this case, what happens is, as we see in the next few slides, the animal was just pushed to the side of the road, which is a good thing, which has been done. However, we are very unprepared to tackle such situations. So the department with some local help tried to shift the animal. But it took quite a lot of time, even in a city like Mysore, which is very, which is much accessible to these areas with vehicular movement and even the forest department within the city limits. And we have another major institution, the Mysore Zoo, which always supports such things with the veterinary doctors around. But unfortunately, it took hours for the people who are supposed to take care of this to reach the spot. And there were a lot of people, the media people also there, trying to shoot the animal instead of carrying it immediately to the rescue center or a vet hospital, wherein we can reduce its trauma and start the actual procedure to save that animal. Unfortunately, this didn't happen, and we can see in this picture how people are posing while the animal is struggling for its life. So ultimately, this was finally taken with some hardship. People put in a lot of effort. Unscientifically, they were it was mishandled and further traumatized. The leopard was dead. So we are very much underprepared when to tackle such situations. To tackle such situations. So it's the underpreparedness or probably the lack of study in these areas, which has not brought out much more scientific outputs and the ways and methods to handle situations, which is letting these animals die on the roads. So these are all small animals, smaller. The cat size, I mean, the leopard is huge comparatively, but still one can say, okay, fine, we are going in a vehicle during the night and the animal just comes in between. We couldn't see it and we just hit it and the animal is dead. That would be one set of defense which people give. But when we see the next slide, how can you just think of this, a huge animal like an elephant, which is one of the largest land mammal on the planet, goes under the wheels of a lorry. So, what is the excuse we can give here? Saying that, okay, I didn't see the animal coming onto the road all of a sudden, or how? And anybody, not one person on the planet can say, I didn't see the elephant coming on the road all of a sudden because it's such a huge animal. And even if you see the background here, we have a view lines clearly demarcated, but yet the animal was run over. It was a subadult. Here in this picture, we can see the mother trying to pull out its young one underneath the uh, lorry or the truck, which were speeding and heading towards Kerala. This happened in the Mananwadi road from Gundlupet to Kerala. And this is the sub-adult which was run over. And unfortunately, the fine which was incurred on this was just 5,000 to the lorry driver. And it's really pathetic to see such things. And one of the rarest species we can see around, though it's a leopard, it's a melanistic leopard called the black panther also. But how many of we have seen these creatures in natural world, but they end up as roadkills in many places. This one, some near Dandeli. So here are some of the statistics of Indian roadkills, which I could compile over a period of time, and some of the rarest species are run over. Like especially, how many of us have seen the hyenas? Not many of us would have seen hyenas. So if you look at the fifth column here, wherein we see in Vadodara, Ahmedabad, we in between 1998 and 2004, there were around 50 hyenas which was killed on the roads, along with 46 nilgais and 16 leopards. Leopards are one of the common cats which are run over by the vehicles as they tend to move very low to the ground and it's quite difficult to see them during the night also. So, however, one of the studies, recent studies which took place in Annamalai, the last column. This was probably one of the serious studies which was taken exclusively on roadkills, and you can see the number of deaths which are recorded: 2,916, close to 3,000 animals which were run over in a span of probably 6 to 8 months. And this was recorded by Jagannath et al., wherein Divya Mudappa, Anand Kumar, and T. Shankaraman from Nature Conservation had done a research on this, of which they found 1,306 amphibians which were run over, 438 reptiles. As I was mentioning earlier, reptiles are one of the animals which are prone to roadkills, especially during the monsoons. That's exactly what is brought out in this paper. Also, the number of roadkills during the monsoons were higher, peaking rather than the other seasons. So birds, we have 10, and 148 mammals. And again, the invertebrates are counted to the next highest number, that is 1,068. So when I took up my studies on roadkills, it was actually in 2004 and 5, and between 5 and 6, we were going towards Bandipur, wherein we saw from Bandipur to Mulewale Road, which we took, and we saw some 6 to 7 roadkills of the snakes. And this instigated us to take up some research work. And as we were coming back from the other side, we noticed that there was a migration of butterflies happening, and we could record a lot of butterfly roadkills. And we concentrated more on this and came up with a paper on the roadkills, keeping insects as flagship taxons. And that's how my interest came in to roadkills. And that's when I've been doing my little bit for working on this aspect of roadkills. So another interesting study, I work with Accountant General Office, and we had this report writing or the auditing of the national parks and wildlife sanctuaries around the Karnataka. And since I was roadkills, roadkills was one of the aspects which being report. And we visited around 13 national parks and wildlife sanctuaries in Karnataka, including all the 5 national parks. So every time we went, and I asked them for the reports of roadkills they have documented. We used to get a very feeble number of roadkills. For instance, if we take Kudremukh Wildlife Sanctuary, which is part of Western Ghats, there initially the department declared that in the period between 2011, 12 and 16, 11 and 16, the 5 year data which we were collecting for a report, they gave us a record saying that we have only 15 roadkills documented. There are no roadkills in this area of Kudremukh Wildlife Division, which I couldn't believe, and I had to do my research, go back, collected data from various sources, and during our exit meeting with the DCF, I had to convince him. I I told him that this cannot be the numbers, especially in Kudremukh being the Western Ghat region. So I told him that as per the records which I have obtained from various sources, there were at least 7 roadkills during that period. I mean, 7 king cobra roadkills itself. They had recorded only 1 king cobra roadkill in the 5 years, but I had got around 7 king cobra roadkills between 2011 and 16. So when I convinced the DCF, DFO of Kudremukh Wildlife Sanctuary, finally agreed, and he also said that he would like to do a trial analysis of this, and we came to a mutual understanding that he would do a roadkill analysis using his department people in 4 major roads of the wildlife sanctuary for a period of say around 1.5 months, that is 45 days. And once the report, I mean the analysis and the data collection was over after 40 days, 45 days, he immediately called me to say that, okay, fine, we had underestimated the record of roadkills. And in 45 days, they got an astonishing 1,338 number of road kills in just 45 days. And the breakup is right in front of you. A total of 295 snakes were recorded as road kills. Then frogs, they recorded around 839, mammals 12, birds were around 7, lizards again 16, insects they could record around 127, and some mutilated which couldn't be classified into any of the groups, but they could recognize them as roadkills. They brought it into others, which were 42. Total of 1,338 roadkills were recorded in just 45 days. So this shows actually what is the impact of vehicular movement in a pristine forest like the Kudremukh Wildlife Sanctuary. And every time we speak to the concerned department people, generally they record the flagship species such as the tiger, the leopard, probably the elephant, the gors, or the nilgai, or the hyenas. But the rest of the animals are not recorded at all. These are very common. If you people go through the news channels, news, WhatsApp, especially today, it's the WhatsApp which sends hundreds of messages which runs within a week that you see a lot of animals killed. Many of the leopards hit by vehicles struggling at the edge of the road and people standing taking selfies, pulling it, pushing it around. And there is no proper management or patrolling done to maintain these animals which are roadkill. Surprise! The best thing which happened in Kudremukh Wildlife Sanctuary was the DFO was very proactive, and once he recorded all these things, he immediately wrote in to the DC of his area and the government, stating that he would love to close the roads for the night. He wants to bring in night traffic ban. So that was in process, but as it was in process, it was transferred to elsewhere, and the status of it is not known as of now. So, how to avoid roadkills? It's not that we cannot avoid roadkills or bring down the number of roadkills if properly managed. So many countries have found out various methods and various strategies to avoid roadkills. So some of them which we would just see it are the construction of wildlife crossing structures, especially which are commonly done is the underpass and the overpasses for the easy movement of wildlife, especially in the areas where the animal movement is more. For this, we need to identify the areas where the animal crossing is more over a period of time. Then we have to decide where to bring in the underpass and the overpasses, which needs a lot of scientific data and inputs. Then we have the basic thing is to avoid canopy break. That would be the best solution. As long as there are no new roads or no widening of roads, try to keep the canopy cover as much as possible. This could facilitate the movement of animal easily crossing over the roads if we can have a canopy cover. This many places they are implementing of late. People are getting aware about the movement of animals and the amount of roadkills happening in our forest also. So there are many areas wherein the traffic flow during the night has been banned, and many places we've also seen there are proposals coming up to avoid the night traffic during the night. Speed limit of vehicles passing sensitive areas should be a must. We can have the speedometers which can tell the vehicles which are moving at what speed they have to move, and what is the speed. We can install speed guns in at regular intervals to show that they are crossing the speed limits within the protected areas. Strict enforcement of law. The cases has to be filed, whether it's the least known species like, or the common species which are the spotted deer or any other animals which we don't consider as important, but they are equally important. Every animal has its role to play in the given environment, and every animal's death is important. Signboards are one of the important ways to educate the people who are moving in the forested areas, where to slow down and how to manage the discipline and while driving in the forest. Awareness programs to truck drivers who regularly use certain areas which pass through the protected areas. The latest technologies like infrared rays have been used, which sense, which are put on the sides of the forest roads, wherein they catch up the signals of the animals moving and give a signal to the vehicles which are coming probably 300 meters before. Finally, no more new highways in the forest anywhere. That would be the best solution we can have to avoid road kills. As long as we have alternate roads, we can keep these highways closed during the night and use the alternate roads. And we have to ensure that there won't be new roads formations to have the forest cleared up for these purposes. We have to find mitigative measures wherein we can connect different areas through alternate roads which are already existing. So some of the images which can clearly depict how we can bring up the mitigation measures to avoid road kills. This is an underpass. So there are a lot of places where people have started to use this and have been successful to a very large extent. This is in Netherlands. Even in Africa, they have tried and have been successful, wherein the animals are using the underpasses and they have been very well protected from getting run over. And even in our country, we have some wonderful work happening from the scientific side, wherein NCF Nature Conservation Foundation in Valparai, which I was mentioning earlier, wherein the lion-tailed macaques have to get down from the tree canopy, cross the road, and take up the next canopy. So here, the students and the local communities are used to hold the boards and tell the vehicle drivers to drive slow, and so that the animals get the right to move first. Then installation of canopy bridges, which have been done in Valparai and has been successfully done. Here we can see the LTMs which were using the roads to cross over now have started to use the canopy bridges, and which is very safe for the animals as well as the drivers. There's another picture, and this is one of the first dedicated underpasses wildlife, which was built on NH 7144, connecting two famous wildlife parks, Hana and Finch. Recently, this is the underpass, and people participation would be very important. So this one situation wherein the Karnataka government had put a night ban on Bandipur Road, which was politically motivated again by the Kerala government, and there was a lot of pressure to lift the night ban. And this got viral. People from all over the country supported this, especially the Karnataka people from all over the Karnataka joined hands, and this we had a day, half a day protest, and we submitted a memorandum to the DCF of CF of Bandipur, wherein we requested him to pass on this to the government of Karnataka as well as the Prime Minister of India to bring it to their notice that the night ban shouldn't be lifted as we have alternate roads. This was already proved by various studies, especially by Sanjay Gubbi sir, who had said after the night traffic ban in Bandipur, which connects Kerala, the road kills number had drastically come down. And since we had an alternate road, there was no reason why we should had to lift the night traffic ban on this road. But one thing which we even today don't understand is there are still lobbying going on to lift the night traffic ban in Bandipur, especially from the Kerala politicians. Though there are vehicles, emergency vehicles are allowed to pass through the forest in the night if there is any emergency, medical emergency. There are four buses, state government buses, which run between Karnataka and Kerala even in the nights, and still they want that road to be open. So how we can avoid road kills at individual levels? So we have seen a lot of people who transverse between Bandipur, Nagarole, and any other forest in southern India or anywhere in the country. They tend to stop and feed the animals. So once we start feeding animals, the animals associate your vehicle movement with the food, and they tend to stick to the edge of the road. And many a times they get run over by the speeding vehicles. So at our individual level, what we can do is we should stop feeding or stop our vehicles in the forest areas or protected areas, and also try to educate people who are doing such things. So the best thing to do is to understand that our survival is completely dependent on the survival of our wildlife. When we pass through a wildlife or a protected area, we are the guests of the wildlife. We need to understand that we are passing through one of the territory which is doesn't belong to us, but of the wildlife. And we have to maintain certain discipline and decorum, and we have to drive slow. We have to give the right of way to the animals first, than we taking up or speeding up in the forest. A little bit of care from our side can avoid a lot of road kills, which can make all the difference. So one of the latest things which is coming up before I conclude my talk is the proposal, recent proposals. Everybody are aware, most of us are aware that the government of India during the lockdown period, through video, voice call and video calls, have sanctioned a lot of proposals, especially the proposals which run through the tiger reserves, especially 31 proposals which are given a nod from the government, which comes under 15 tiger reserves. One of them is the Hubli-Ankola railway line in Karnataka. This is a proposed new line, 168 kilometers Hubli-Ankola railway line. This, if it is approved, if it is also already approved, but if it is taken, the action is taken that this is started, we would be losing around 600 hectares of prime forest, and we'll be bringing down around 2.2 lakh trees for this construction. This proposal has been forwarded to various ministries since 1997, and most of the times it's been rejected by all the government officials as well as the MOEF, even the Karnataka government and the forest department have straightforwardly rejected it. However, this time the wildlife board has approved this project, and through this medium, I would request you all that you need to stand up against this. If this railway lane comes, our forest will be literally bisected into two halves, and we don't know what would be the catastrophic effect of this and how many animals and birds would be killed on this transact line. So with this, I would like to conclude my talk, and I can take up any questions if we have through Hemant.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for your detailed presentation. Especially with the lot of case studies, you showed us what the ground reality is. And you also told us different solutions for the menace of the road kills in our Indian roads. So with this, let's take a few questions. So the first question is from Purushottam. So his question is how to handle the animal like leopard to safety while it has been in impact roadkill.
Yeah, basically, see, the first thing is we have to understand one thing. Who was the one who asked me the question? Pramod.
Purushottam.
Purushottam. Well, Purushottam, it's a very simple. The basic things, whether it's a roadkill or any other man-animal conflict areas, the first thing is we need to cordon off from the animal. The basic thing we have to do is inform the forest department as quickly as possible. We have to give the animal its space. So especially when it's an impact kill, an impact leopard which has been hit by a vehicle and it's still struggling to get back to on its feet, it's already traumatized, as I told you earlier. It's always better to inform the forest department as quickly as possible. Try to calm down the animal. Calm down the animal in the sense we don't have to crowd in front of the animal. We have to give it its space. Everything has a psychological barrier. We shouldn't be breaking that psychological barrier. Stay away, keep the people away from the animal, and wait for the forest department to come. This is the basic thing we have to do. Once the forest department comes, they know their duties with the veterinarian. They either tranquilize the animal and move it to the safety. This is the simple thing which we can do as public.
Okay. So here's a question from Ramesh sir. Is there any standard scientific methods to estimate road kills of wildlife?
Yeah, there are a lot of methods. Basically, you have to walk through the roads and estimate the road kills over a period of time. And then we have to analyze statistically, and we have to do it in different seasons to find out where the road kills is happening and in which season the road kills is happening and to what extent. So once we take it to the field and select the areas wherein we observe a lot of road kills and monitor it over a period of time, that can give you a proper statistics. And as I said, seasons would be one of the critical points here, as many of the researchers who have done roadkills, they have observed that monsoons and the rainy seasons are one of the high times when the movement of frogs and these reptiles are, and there are a lot of roadkills during this season.
So another question from Ramesh. Why kills are very high during rainy and nocturnal periods?
See, as I told you earlier, again, let me elaborate a bit on that. See, rainy seasons, as we have seen the statistics, many of the roadkills would be either reptiles or the amphibians. So monsoon is the time when we see a lot of frogging activity happening around the globe. So during monsoons, the animals, the frogs tend to move to the pools nearby. And if there is a major road which is nearer to the pool, probably then the road kills of frogs will increase. And similarly, as I was talking, the reptiles, as we all know, they are cold-blooded animals. They depend on their surrounding environment for their body to maintain their body temperature. And monsoons are the periods which is can run really cold. And the asphalted road act as the heat in the road helps them to get the required heat compared to the surrounding area. So they tend to come and stay on the road to get the thermal heat wave which is liberated from the road. So they tend to be on the road during these monsoons. So ultimately they get killed by the speeding vehicles there also.
So a question from Meera. Are there studies from Indian context on overbridges with government trying to move 70-meter wide highways by using EIA? Will these overbridge be effective for arboreal animals?
Certainly, the NCF people have shown it a very simple way. See, what I would suggest is like if we have an alternative road, we always have to avoid these roads during the night. And especially when it comes to the arboreal species, we have to have a canopy. We have to have a canopy. Either it's a man-made canopy or probably try to get the vegetation in such that the canopy cover is continuous. So definitely government can do this, and there are a lot of scientists who are working on this, and a lot of method and methodologies they have involved themselves in understanding the movement of these animals and identifying the areas where they need to have a overbridge or the underbridge. So it's all there. It's just that we are failing to understand the scientific output and put an effort to bring in these methods to save our wildlife. It's just that we are lagging in the implementation part.
So here's a question from Tarun. Can I pick up biological samples from roadkills for study purposes?
Definitely, we cannot pick up biological samples from the roadkills unless you have special permission. It's prohibited under the Wildlife Protection Act. We cannot pick anything from wildlife.
So a question from Samrita. What is done to the roadkill body? And how is the night roadkill study done in the wildlife sanctuary? And please share any of your contact details.
Generally, what we do is when we are assessing roadkills, so we generally tend to start early in the morning. So once the night falls, we cannot move in the forest. So we don't go look for roadkills in the night unless there is an accidental record of roadkills which we record during our survey periods or movement during the in the protected areas. However, the systematic way what we do is like we start off early, like say around 4:35, we start patrolling the road and we have a designated transact lines which we have designed for our studies, and we go through that stretch of road collecting all the roadkills and putting it or throwing it to the side of the road. Once we collect the data, especially if if we are collecting data on insects or the smaller species, the frogs or small reptiles, we can easily collect the data and pick up the roadkill and put it onto the side of the road or probably throw it a bit away from the road. So by doing this, we are not only recounting the data, but also we are avoiding a chain of roadkills in which I was talking about the food chain because of the roadkill. So just by picking up the dead animal from the road and putting it to the side avoids a lot of other roadkills also. So this is how we take the data of the night in the early morning, and we do it in the evenings as well, just to see if there are any other roadkills during the day. So we have to have two sets of data. So the 12-hour gap, like morning to evening. So if we take data in the evening as well as early morning.
So here's a question from Sanjay. First of all, I would like to thank you for an informative session. And he's asking, are there enough awareness campaigns done requesting people not to feed in areas which are found with more such feeding behavior, since it is one of the easiest ways to execute compared to other methods?
Yeah, there are a lot of boards and signages which we see around the protected area. Especially these things happen in protected areas where we have the provision of safaris. Especially if we look at South India, the Nagarode National Park, the Bandipur National Park, Mudumalai National Park, and Kudremukh National Park. Here are all the places where we see a lot of traffic influx and people waiting to get in to their safari lines, and in the process what they do is they just try to wander around and see these macaques or the langurs which are sitting at the roadside. They just tend to throw few things, and these animals get used to it and they think as the vehicles as a feeding area. So there are a lot of signages, but in spite of that, people tend to do this. And especially in Bandipur and Nagarode, they have also brought in the patrolling teams which patrol the length and breadth of these areas. And they have also started to penalize people who stop the vehicles in the protected areas and feed these animals. However, this cannot be done 24 hours. It's also the responsibility of the people to understand that, and they voluntarily should stop doing this.
So a question from Gokul, is it advisable to remove the dead animal from the road to prevent food chain animal death?
Certainly, it's very important we do that. But in protected areas, we have to be very careful, and it's better to inform the forest department people. And if you can wait near the roadkill, if it's a larger mammal or something like that, we cannot pull out. So we have to wait for the forest department. So somebody can inform the forest department and get it cleared.
So a question from Dr. Raghunathan. Sir, please suggest mitigation strategies to avoid roadkill for pollinators like butterflies in general and diurnal insects in particular.
See, insects and I mean especially insects, which includes butterflies also. We need to understand their movement pattern, and there are particular seasons where we see butterfly migrations happening. And during this period, we have to be very cautious when we are moving. It can happen within our urban setup also. We see a lot of butterflies which cross our urban setup also. During this time also, it's very important that we drive our vehicles very slowly, especially the vehicles which have windshields, like the cars, or the trucks, or the buses. So some research has shown like that if we can drive the vehicles at 30 kilometer speed, then even if we hit a butterfly, if the butterfly hits the windshield, it to some extent survives. But if the speed is more, generally they tend to die during that period of time. So it's better to drive slow during this period of migration so that we can reduce the amount of deaths. But insects, it's very difficult. I also understand it's not at all visible, and many a times they just get run over by the vehicles. So especially insects are everywhere. So in that context, it's really difficult to avoid road kills of insects. But when it in the context of butterflies, yes, we can take some personal attention and personal interest to lessen our speeding vehicles and avoid the kills of these butterflies.
So here's a question from Irshad. What should we do to maintain road ecology?
See, road ecology as it is, we are more concerned about the roads which are in the protected areas than the urban setup. Though urban setup also has certain amount of wildlife in it, so the animals here to some extent have got used to the vehicular movement, and even though there are roadkills, it will be less in number compared to the animals run over in protected areas. So in protected areas, we don't need to take much care, but to follow the guidances given by the department that we have to drive slowly at a intermittent pace between 30 to 40 kilometer speed. That's all. It is good to both the wildlife as well as us. If we are speeding at 80 kilometers in a wildlife area and animals won't even realize you're coming at 80 kilometer speed, and if they just come onto the road, you won't know what to do, and neither the animal knows what to do. So many a times, if you hit an animal, there are chances that your vehicle also would topple, and you can also sustain injuries. At the same time, you are killing a wildlife. So it's better to maintain the speed in protected areas. That would be the best solution, and avoid night travel in protected areas.
So a question from Ramesh. So in his faunal survey, he encountered a lot of roadkills of greater cowcall. So is there any particular reason for this?
Greater cockle, even I have encountered a few roadkills of greater cockle. Probably they are low flyers to some extent, and they get hit by the trucks many a time. So that would be the only reason which I see a lot of roadkills in cockles.
Yeah. Okay. A question from Irshad. Day by day increasing human animal conflict, what should we do for controlling?
The basic point is we have to control our population, simple as that, and the development activities. The more population we have, the more development we think of. And in fact, what I would like to say in this context, uh, Corona has given us a very clear picture of we can sustain without luxury. We can do it without luxury. So if we can self-sustain us with that things and put the burden on the develop, I mean, on the wildlife and stay within our limits, probably we can coexist for a very long period with our wildlife. Do we have many more in our country? So this was one of the first underpasses which was constructed, uh, and probably will have more coming up. And it's one of the simplest of mitigations, though it takes in a lot of effort. But with the kind of development happening, I think we need more of these things, and especially when we have new roads and which have been sanctioned now and coming up, we need to have a planned way of doing these structures, and we need to understand the animal movement before doing this, and we need to have a lot of data and statistics collected, and then we can implement this. It's possible.
Sir Nikit is asking what measures are followed to prevent frog roadkills in the smaller roads.
See, basically, again, as I was mentioning earlier, when it comes to the department, when I say department, the forest department, roadkills of these lesser known species, which I call like the frogs, these reptiles, and all, are not really considered very seriously in our country. However, though of late there are a lot of work coming up, and steadily the awareness level is also increasing, though individual measures to protect only the amphibians or the frogs, I've not seen much. uh, but yes, the only way to do is to identify areas where the movement is, and to have a night traffic ban would be the only solution for this. However, in UK, there is a concept wherein toads on roads. Here, what people do is during the breeding season of these frogs, thousands and thousands of frogs tend to move from one area to the other area, wherein they have to cross the roads to reach their pools on the other side. And initially, thousands were run over by vehicles, and people have taken initiative, and what they do today is they stand on the roads during that particular season with the buckets in their hand. They literally pick up the frogs which come onto the road and leave it onto the other side. They're also made the underpasses for the frogs to move, but still there are a lot of volunteers standing on the sides of the roads waiting for the frogs. The moment they come onto the road, they pick it up, put it into the bucket, and once the bucket is half full, they take it to the other side and leave it. That is one of the ways we can also start to initiate this process of saving frogs.
Amlan Goswami is asking, overpasses and underpasses help in safe movement of the animals from one side to the other. But
Yeah.
what measures should be taken to prevent reptiles who are attracted to the roads for the thermoregulatory purpose?
See, thermal is one of the adaptations which the reptiles have learned over a period of time. So where there is the roadkill number is on the higher side, to keep the from the, if we think from the wildlife perspective, the only option is to avoid the night traffic. We have to bring in a night traffic ban on that road. That is the only solution I see as of now. As far as we have alternate roads, we need to bring in this night traffic ban. That is the only method we can adopt right now.
Thank you so much, Sapta sir, for agreeing to us and being the resource person.
Yeah, thanks, Anush. We'll catch up.